Next, it's been more than 150 years since the start of the California gold rush. Though dreams of striking it rich may have faded for many, there are still some in the U.S. hoping to strike it rich in streams and creeks. One method of mining for gold is at the center of a growing debate between miners and environmentalists. In Washington state, the controversy has reached a fever pitch. Correspondent Nils Cowan from member station KCTS in Seattle and EarthFix, a public media partnership, reports.
In the rugged mountain wilderness of Washington state, a unique group of enthusiasts is carrying on an age-old tradition.
Probably going to put the dredge right here.
Right in that area? Okay.
They're searching for gold.
Gold has always had an allure for man, and man has always chased it.
For modern small-scale miners like Ron Larson, the most effective tool is a fairly new invention known as the hydraulic dredge.
Locked and loaded.
A hydraulic dredge is essentially a floating platform with a power plant that supplies air and power to move water over a riffle box to sort out the heavy material. Gold is heavier than every other mineral in the stream, and the only way to get to the gold is to remove what is called overburden.
To strip away this layer of rock and sediment, miners are equipped with diving gear and a high-powered underwater vacuum. Also known as suction dredging, this method allows miners to go through as much as 40 times more sediment than non-motorized mining. But growing concern over possible environmental impacts has caused lawmakers in California, Oregon, and Idaho to take action to restrict it. That leaves Washington as one of just a few western states to allow dredging in most of its waterways, setting up a key battle between small-scale gold miners.
There's a dredge down there.
Oh, yeah.
And the activists looking to shut them down. In central Washington, a team of fish enthusiasts and environmental activists is heading into prime dredging territory. They're looking for evidence of how this mining method impacts fish.
Wow. Are you kidding?
They've altered the channel of the water so that they can bring it into their sleuths.
Greg Bufundo is the Washington field coordinator for Trout Unlimited.
We're here and we're fishermen and we're concerned. We've been seeing waters get warmer. We've been seeing droughts across the west that have been impacting fish. And right now we have steelhead that are trying to get upstream to spawn, and they can't. I mean, I'm looking at this and I'm seeing some pretty good blockages. One of the reasons they can't is there's dams, there's holes that are trapping the fish. I mean, this is, you know, that looks like a bomb went off in that thing.
Farther upstream, Bufundo and restoration ecologist Crystal Elliott Perez check for impacts to water quality just below a dredging operation.
When you run sediment through a sluice and then you get a sediment plume coming out the back end, that impacts turbidity or increases turbidity.
Excess sediment makes it difficult for fish to breathe and can cause water temperatures to rise to harmful levels.
Remember what it was back there? 2.7? Yep. 10.2. Are you kidding?
4 times higher than farther downstream. Not enough to kill fish, but they're more concerned about the overall impacts dredging could be having, impacts that currently aren't being measured. Washington was among the first states to publish rules for small-scale mining in 1980. Current regulations don't allow dredging during spawning seasons and place restrictions on where in the stream miners can operate, how large their motors and hoses can be, and how close together they can dredge. But permits, which are free, are required only for projects that don't fall within these rules. This means that the state isn't tracking where or when dredging is taking place. That's a problem for Mark Johnson, a fish biologist with the Yakima Nation. He says suction dredging can have a negative impact on fish spawning habitat.
When you get up in the isolated areas, people tend not to follow those rules. They will get into areas where it's smaller, coarse gravel, and that's typically where fish like to spawn. They dig their nests or their redds in the ground, lay their eggs, and then they die.
The nutrients from these dead fish build the food web for the next generation. Miners say that current regulations are restrictive enough.
If you are caught out here, you will get fined, and some of them are pretty stiff fines, up to $5,000 if you're not following the provisions.
They contend their activities clear the streams of trash and debris and have little to no impact on fish.
A great many of the prospectors that I know are also fishermen, and none of us go up here looking to kill fish.
Angler and activist Kim McDonald says it's time for tighter controls and more oversight.
We'll be able to see if there's any impacts from monitoring these guys, from having better enforcement. We'll be able to see those impacts fairly quickly.
Caught in the middle is the state's Department of Fish and Wildlife. They're responsible for enforcing mining rules.
We receive a lot of pressure from both ends of the spectrum on mineral prospecting.
Deputy Director Jeff Davis says that small-scale mining is on the rise, but more rules aren't necessarily the answer.
Part of the ecosystem are humans and their way of life on the land, and that has to be part of how our agency achieves our mission. I don't think you can regulate your way to long-term healthy fish and wildlife resources in every circumstance.
McDonald believes the increase in mining in already threatened fish habitat underscores the need for change.
If you take out a map of Washington State, every stream and river has anadromous fish, and almost every single one is dealing with fish that are going extinct. And we have spent since the late 1990s talking about what we should do about it. This is something we can do.
Back on the river, miner Ron Larson and his partner are shutting down for the day.
Say if we're getting any gold.
Oh yes.
Wow. It is maybe a $40, $50 nugget.
It doesn't pay for the gas to get here, but Larson insists it's worth it.
Gold fever is a very, very real thing. It's an adrenaline thing, and it always keeps you coming back.
As long as there's gold in these rivers, Larson says, he'll keep fighting for his right to search for it. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Nils Cowan in Seattle.